Men are moved by two levers only, fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you love conquers all. They whisper that vulnerability is strength. They sell you fantasies of unconditional acceptance. This is the opiate of the masses, a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep you compliant. We dissect the uncomfortable truths, the mechanics of power, the silent wars waged in the theater of human interaction. We understand that hearts, far from being unbreakable fortresses, are exquisitely sensitive instruments, vulnerable to pressure, manipulation, and ultimately, control. The world is not a meritocracy of good intentions, but a chessboard where every emotion is a potential weakness, every desire a lever to be exploited. Your capacity for love, your yearning for connection, these are not guarantees of happiness, but vulnerabilities in a world governed by hidden chains. Understanding these chains is the first step toward breaking them, toward achieving a level of sovereignty that most cannot even imagine. We operate in the shadows, analyzing the architecture of control, not to revel in its existence, but to dismantle it. The naive believe in inherent goodness. We observe inherent potential, both for creation and destruction. Human weakness is not a moral failing, but a fundamental aspect of our shared condition. The capacity for fear, the need for validation, the susceptibility to flattery. These are not flaws to be ashamed of, but data points to be studied, understood, and if necessary, neutralized. To believe otherwise is to walk blindfolded into a minefield. The world is full of individuals and organizations eager to exploit these weaknesses for their own gain. They promise safety, security, belonging, but demand obedience, conformity, and ultimately, your freedom. The calculating mind sees this dynamic with chilling clarity. It understands that sentimentality is a luxury, that empathy can be a liability, and that the path to true power lies in mastering the art of emotional detachment. This is not about becoming a monster, but about recognizing the monster that already exists within the system. The predator thrives not because it is inherently evil, but because it understands the vulnerabilities of its prey. To survive, you must learn to see the world through its eyes. The architect of control understands that truth is not a fixed point, but a fluid concept, shaped by perception, narrative, and ultimately power. The narrative becomes the reality. They craft narratives that resonate with the deepest desires and fears of the masses, creating echo chambers of belief that reinforce their control. Dissent is silenced, critical thinking is discouraged, and the individual is submerged in a sea of manufactured consent. The illusion of choice is maintained, but the parameters of that choice are carefully controlled. They are masters of propaganda, crafting messages that bypass logic and appeal directly to the emotional core. They understand that people are more likely to believe what they want to be true, regardless of the evidence. The skilled manipulator leverages this inherent bias, weaving narratives that confirm existing beliefs, stoking anxieties, and promising salvation. To break free from this cycle of manipulation, you must cultivate a ruthless objectivity, a willingness to question everything, even your own cherished beliefs. The end justifies the means. This is not a moral statement, but a cold observation of how the world operates. Power is rarely attained through altruism or benevolence. It is seized, maintained, and wielded through strategic calculation, calculated risk, and if necessary, ruthless action. The world rewards those who are willing to do what others are not. Those who cling to idealistic notions of fairness and justice are often left behind, exploited, and ultimately powerless. This is not to say that morality is irrelevant, but that it must be tempered with pragmatism. The pursuit of noble goals often requires difficult choices, uncomfortable compromises, and a willingness to embrace the gray areas. Those who insist on absolute purity are often paralyzed by indecision, incapable of taking the decisive action necessary to achieve meaningful change. The moral compass must be calibrated to the realities of the world, not to the fantasies of the idealist. Silence reveals more than any carefully crafted speech. The omissions, the hesitations, the subtle shifts in body language, These are the tells that betray the hidden agendas. The skilled observer learns to read between the lines, to decipher the unspoken messages that permeate every interaction. Silence can be a weapon, a shield, a tool for manipulation. It can be used to intimidate, to control the flow of information, to create an atmosphere of uncertainty. The master of silence understands its power, wielding it with precision and intent. They listen more than they speak, observing the reactions of others, gathering intelligence, and waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The world is a stage, and silence is the backdrop against which the drama unfolds. Pay attention to what is not being said, and you will gain a deeper understanding of the forces at play. The truth is often hidden in plain sight, concealed not by elaborate lies, but by carefully orchestrated silences. The heart under pressure reveals its true nature. Like a diamond formed under immense heat and stress, the human spirit is forged in the crucible of adversity. But unlike the diamond, the heart is vulnerable, susceptible to fracture and corruption. The pressures of ambition, the fear of failure, the sting of betrayal, these are the forces that can warp the human soul, driving individuals to desperate measures, forcing them to compromise their values, and ultimately, transforming them into something unrecognizable. Observe the executive, driven by the relentless pursuit of profit, sacrificing their personal relationships, their health, and their integrity on the altar of success. See the politician, consumed by the hunger for power, betraying their constituents, making deals with unsavory characters, and abandoning their principles for the sake of political expediency. These are the hearts under pressure, revealing the hidden depths of human depravity. Hidden chains bind us all, invisible threads of obligation, expectation, and fear that restrict our movements and limit our choices. These chains are not always physical. They are often psychological, forged in the depths of our subconscious minds. The need for approval, the fear of rejection, the desire for security, these are the shackles that hold us captive, preventing us from realizing our full potential. Consider the employee, trapped in a dead-end job, afraid to pursue their dreams for fear of financial insecurity. Observe the individual, stuck in an abusive relationship, unable to break free from the cycle of violence and manipulation. These are the hidden chains that bind us, preventing us from living authentic, fulfilling lives. The path to liberation lies in recognizing these chains, understanding their origins, and developing the courage to break free. Calculating human weakness is the cornerstone of manipulation. Every individual possesses vulnerabilities, chinks in their armor that can be exploited by those who know where to look. These weaknesses are not always obvious. They are often hidden beneath a facade of strength and confidence. The skilled manipulator understands how to identify these vulnerabilities, how to exploit them for their own gain, and how to leave their victims feeling powerless and defeated. Consider the con artist who preys on the elderly, exploiting their loneliness and their desire for connection. Observe the cult leader who manipulates their followers, exploiting their insecurities and their need for belonging. These are the architects of control, masters of manipulation, who understand the darkest depths of the human psyche. The key to resisting manipulation is self-awareness, understanding your own weaknesses, and developing the strength to resist the allure of those who seek to exploit them. The architect of control understands that information is power. They meticulously gather intelligence, analyze patterns of behavior, and anticipate the moves of their opponents. They understand that knowledge is the key to manipulating events, influencing outcomes, and maintaining their position of dominance. They are masters of deception, adept at concealing their true intentions and presenting a carefully crafted image to the world. Observe the intelligence operative who works in the shadows, gathering secrets and manipulating events from behind the scenes. Consider the corporate strategist who analyzes market trends, identifies competitive advantages, and develops plans to dominate their industry. These are the architects of control, the masters of manipulation, who understand the power of information. To counter their influence, One must become a discerning consumer of information, questioning everything, verifying facts, and developing the ability to think critically and independently. Truth is a lie, or rather, truth is a construct, a subjective interpretation of reality that is shaped by our own biases, beliefs, and experiences. There is no objective truth, only perspectives, and the skilled manipulator understands how to shape those perspectives to their advantage. They are masters of propaganda, adept at crafting narratives that resonate with their target audience and distorting reality to suit their own purposes. Consider the politician who spins the news, exaggerates their accomplishments, and downplays their failures. Observe the advertising executive who creates compelling commercials that appeal to our desires and emotions, regardless of the truth. These are the architects of deception, the masters of manipulation, who understand the power of narrative. To protect oneself from their influence, one must cultivate a healthy skepticism, recognizing that every narrative has an agenda and that the truth is often more complex and nuanced than it appears. The end justifies the means, a dangerous and seductive philosophy that has been used to justify countless atrocities throughout history. This principle suggests that any action, no matter how immoral or unethical, is permissible if it leads to a desired outcome. It is a slippery slope that can lead to moral relativism, a disregard for human dignity, and ultimately to the erosion of all ethical boundaries. Consider the revolutionary, who believes that violence is necessary to overthrow an oppressive regime, even if it means sacrificing innocent lives. Observe the CEO, who believes that cutting costs is necessary to increase profits, even if it means laying off employees and destroying their livelihoods. These are the individuals who believe that the end justifies the means, and who are willing to sacrifice anything to achieve their goals. A more ethical approach recognizes that the means are just as important as the end, and that the pursuit of noble goals should not come at the expense of our own integrity. Silence reveals not only what is hidden, but also what is feared. The things left unsaid often carry more weight than the most eloquent pronouncements. A refusal to acknowledge a problem, a hesitation to condemn injustice, a deliberate avoidance of a difficult conversation. These silences speak volumes about the priorities and values of those involved. Silence can be a form of complicity, a tacit endorsement of the status quo, even when that status quo is unjust or harmful. It can be a way of protecting oneself from criticism or retribution, even at the expense of truth and justice. Consider the bystander who witnesses a crime but remains silent, afraid to get involved. Observe the employee who knows about corporate misconduct but refuses to speak up, afraid of losing their job. These are the silences that perpetuate injustice, that allow corruption to flourish, and that ultimately erode the foundations of society. To break these silences requires courage, a willingness to speak truth to power, and a commitment to standing up for what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. True power lies not in the ability to command silence, but in the willingness to break it. A newly appointed CEO walks into a company riddled with internal strife and declining profits. He inherited a fractured leadership team, each member vying for power, clinging to their departments like personal fiefdoms. The previous CEO, a well-meaning but ultimately ineffective leader, had allowed these power struggles to fester, creating an environment of mistrust and resentment. The new CEO, a man with a reputation for ruthless efficiency and unwavering resolve, immediately recognizes the problem. He understands that the company's dysfunction stems not from a lack of talent or resources, but from the poisoned relationships between its key players. His first act is not to announce a grand new strategy or to implement sweeping organizational changes, but to observe. He spends weeks quietly studying the dynamics of the leadership team, attending meetings, listening to conversations, and carefully analyzing the subtle cues of body language and tone. He identifies the key power brokers, the individuals who wield the most influence, both formal and informal. He discovers their individual ambitions, their hidden insecurities, and their deepest fears. He learns who is loyal, who is opportunistic, and who is actively working to undermine the company's success. His analysis reveals a network of alliances and rivalries, a complex web of interpersonal relationships that governs the flow of information and the decision-making process. He discovers that one of the senior vice presidents, a charismatic and ambitious woman, is secretly plotting to oust the CFO and take over his department. He learns that the head of sales, a longtime employee with a loyal following, is actively sabotaging the marketing department's efforts to launch a new product line. He uncovers a pattern of backstabbing, gossip, and sabotage that permeates the entire organization. The CEO realizes that he cannot simply impose order from above. He cannot simply issue directives and expect everyone to fall in line. He must first dismantle the existing power structure and rebuild it from the ground up, creating a culture of collaboration and accountability. He begins by targeting the most disruptive individuals, the ones who are actively poisoning the well. He does not confront them directly or engage in open conflict. Instead, he uses their own weaknesses against them, subtly manipulating events to undermine their authority and isolate them from their allies. He leaks carefully crafted rumors to sow discord and suspicion. He offers tempting opportunities to encourage them to overreach and expose their vulnerabilities. He uses their own ambition as a weapon, playing them against each other to create internal conflict. He understands that fear is a powerful motivator, and he uses it judiciously to keep everyone in line. He does not threaten or intimidate, but he makes it clear that he is aware of everything that is happening and that he will not tolerate disloyalty or incompetence. He rewards those who cooperate and punishes those who resist, sending a clear message that his authority is absolute. As the power struggles intensify, the CEO remains calm and detached, observing the chaos with a cold, clinical eye. He is like a chess master, carefully planning his moves, anticipating his opponent's reactions, and always staying one step ahead. He understands that human beings are predictable, driven by their emotions, their desires, and their fears. He uses this understanding to manipulate them, to control them, and to achieve his goals. He is not concerned with popularity or with being liked. He is concerned only with results. He is willing to make difficult decisions, to sacrifice individuals, and to endure criticism in order to achieve the greater good of the company. He is a pragmatist, a realist, and a master strategist. He understands that the world is a competitive place, and that only the strong survive. The CEO orchestrates a series of strategic realignments, carefully designed to dismantle the existing power structure and consolidate his own control. He begins by promoting a few trusted lieutenants to key positions, rewarding loyalty and competence. He elevates individuals who have proven their dedication to the company's success, regardless of their personal ambitions or political affiliations. He then initiates a series of organizational changes, restructuring departments and redefining roles to eliminate redundancies and streamline operations. He uses these changes as an opportunity to remove underperforming employees and to consolidate authority in the hands of his trusted allies. He reassigns the senior vice president who was plotting against the CFO to a dead-end project, effectively neutralizing her threat and isolating her from the rest of the leadership team. He publicly praises her contributions to the company, but privately limits her access to information and resources, ensuring that she is unable to cause any further damage. He quietly investigates the head of sales who was sabotaging the marketing department's efforts, gathering evidence of his misconduct and preparing to take disciplinary action. He does not confront him directly, but instead leaks rumors of an impending investigation, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. He then offers the head of sales a generous severance package in exchange for his resignation, allowing him to save face and avoid a public scandal. With the most disruptive individuals neutralized, the CEO turns his attention to rebuilding the company's culture. He institutes a new set of values, emphasizing collaboration, accountability, and transparency. He implements a rigorous performance management system, holding employees accountable for their results and rewarding those who exceed expectations. He fosters a culture of open communication, encouraging employees to share their ideas and concerns without fear of reprisal. He holds regular town hall meetings where he addresses employees directly, answering their questions and addressing their concerns. He uses these meetings to reinforce his vision for the company and to build trust and confidence in his leadership. He also implements a strict code of ethics, prohibiting all forms of corruption, bribery, and insider trading. He makes it clear that any violation of the code will be met with swift and severe consequences. He appoints a compliance officer to oversee the implementation of the code and to investigate any allegations of misconduct. Over time, the company's culture begins to transform. The atmosphere of mistrust and resentment begins to dissipate, replaced by a sense of collaboration and shared purpose. Employees start to trust each other and to work together towards common goals. Productivity increases, profits soar, and the company's reputation improves. The CEO's ruthless efficiency and unwavering resolve have paid off. He has successfully transformed a dysfunctional organization into a high-performing team. He has demonstrated the power of Machiavellian strategy and the importance of understanding human psychology. He has proven that in the world of business, as in life, only the strong survive. He understands that to maintain his position of power, he must remain vigilant and ruthless. He must constantly monitor the environment, anticipate threats, and adapt to changing circumstances. He must never let his guard down, never trust anyone completely, and always be prepared to strike first. He is a master of the game, and he knows that the only way to win is to play to the very end. The CEO's transformation of the company is not without its critics. Some accuse him of being cold-hearted and manipulative, of sacrificing human relationships for the sake of profit. Others admire his decisiveness and his ability to get things done, arguing that he is simply doing what is necessary to ensure the company's survival. The truth is, the CEO is a complex figure, a product of his environment and his experiences. He has learned that in the world of business, as in life, there are no easy answers, no simple solutions. He has learned that sometimes the only way to achieve noble goals is to make difficult choices and to take calculated risks. He believes that the ends justify the means, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his objectives. However, he is not without a conscience. He understands that his actions have consequences, and he tries to minimize the harm that he causes. He believes that it is his responsibility to protect the company and its employees, even if it means making unpopular decisions. He is a pragmatist, a realist, and a leader. He understands that the world is not a fair place, and that to succeed, one must be ruthless and resourceful. He is not afraid to make enemies, to step on toes, or to break the rules if necessary. He is a master of the game, and he plays it with skill and precision. He understands the power of silence and manipulation. Consider the seemingly innocuous question, "How are you?" In most social situations, it's a mere formality, an empty greeting that requires only a perfunctory response. But in the hands of a skilled manipulator, it can become a tool for extracting information and gauging vulnerability. By carefully observing the response, the tone of voice, the body language, the hesitation, the manipulator can glean insights into the other person's emotional state and identify potential weaknesses. A hesitant reply, a downcast gaze, a nervous fidget, these subtle cues can reveal underlying anxieties or insecurities that the manipulator can exploit. The power of silence in this exchange lies in its ability to create a space for vulnerability. The expectation of a response can pressure the other person to reveal more than they intend, especially if they are uncomfortable with silence or eager to please. The manipulator can use this pressure to subtly guide the conversation, probing for sensitive topics or seeking confirmation of their suspicions. The silence that follows a probing question can be even more revealing, as the other person struggles to formulate a response or attempts to conceal their true feelings. A long pause, a stammered answer, a change in subject. These are all telltale signs that the manipulator can use to their advantage. The CEO embodies a paradox. He is both a master of control and a servant of his own ambition. He meticulously orchestrates the actions of others, manipulating their desires and fears to achieve his goals. Yet, he is himself driven by a relentless pursuit of power and success, a desire that makes him vulnerable to his own machinations. He believes he is in control, but his ambition is a chain that binds him to a never-ending cycle of manipulation and control. Consider the political landscape, where silence is often used as a strategic weapon. A politician who refuses to comment on a controversial issue may be attempting to avoid alienating potential voters or attracting unwanted scrutiny. But their silence can also be interpreted as tacit approval of the issue, or as a sign of weakness and indecision. The power of silence in this context lies in its ambiguity. It allows the politician to maintain plausible deniability, to avoid taking a firm stance that could be used against them in the future. But it also creates a vacuum of information, which can be filled with speculation and rumor. The media often rushes to fill this void, offering their own interpretations of the politician's silence and shaping public opinion accordingly. The politician's silence can therefore become a self-fulfilling prophecy, reinforcing existing biases and perceptions. The politician who remains silent in the face of injustice may be seen as complicit in that injustice, even if they had no intention of endorsing it. Silence, therefore, is never truly neutral. It always carries a message, whether intended or not. The master manipulator understands this and uses it to their advantage. They know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to reveal and when to conceal. They are masters of controlling the narrative, shaping public opinion, and achieving their goals through a combination of words and silence. The CEO understands this inherently. He knows when to unleash a torrent of carefully crafted words to motivate, persuade, or intimidate. And he knows when to remain silent, allowing the silence to speak volumes, to create an atmosphere of suspense, fear, or anticipation. He uses silence as a tool to control the flow of information, to manipulate the perceptions of others, and to maintain his position of power. He is a master of the game, and he plays it with skill and precision. But even he is not immune to the power of silence. There are times when silence can be deafening, when it can reveal truths that words cannot express. And there are times when silence can be a trap, a prison of one's own making. The trap springs when weakness masquerades as strength, when the vulnerable believe they are shielded, and when silence becomes a cage. Those who lack the internal fortitude to confront reality often seek refuge in echo chambers, surrounding themselves with those who reinforce their existing beliefs, however delusional they may be. This creates a feedback loop where dissenting opinions are stifled, and the individual becomes increasingly detached from the objective truth. Within this self-constructed reality, they become susceptible to manipulation, their perceptions warped by carefully curated information and emotional appeals. Their desire for comfort and validation overrides their capacity for critical thinking, making them easy targets for those who seek to exploit their vulnerabilities. Consider the insecure employee, desperate for approval from his superiors. He readily agrees with their suggestions, even when he knows they are flawed, fearing that disagreement will jeopardize his position. His silence is not a sign of strength or loyalty, but rather a manifestation of his fear, a fear that is readily exploited by those seeking to advance their own agendas. He becomes a pawn in their game, his ambition and insecurity blinding him to the true nature of the situation. The trap tightens when the individual becomes emotionally invested in their delusion, when their sense of self becomes intertwined with their distorted perception of reality. Any challenge to their beliefs is perceived as a personal attack, triggering defensive mechanisms and reinforcing their commitment to the lie. This is where reason fails, and emotion takes over, clouding judgment and making them even more susceptible to manipulation. The cult leader understands this dynamic perfectly. He preys on the vulnerable, offering them a sense of belonging and purpose in exchange for their unwavering loyalty. He isolates them from their families and friends, creating an environment where his word is the only truth. He uses emotional manipulation to break down their defenses, exploiting their fears and insecurities to gain control over their minds. His followers become his puppets, their will subservient to his own, trapped in a web of deceit and dependency. The politician, too, understands the power of emotional investment. He crafts his message to appeal to the deepest desires and anxieties of his constituents, promising them a better future if they only place their trust in him. He demonizes his opponents, creating a sense of us versus them, and fostering a climate of fear and resentment. His supporters become fiercely loyal, willing to overlook his flaws and defend him against any criticism, blinded by their emotional attachment to his vision. In the end, the trap is sprung not by external forces, but by the individual's own internal weaknesses. It is the lack of self-awareness, the fear of confrontation, and the desire for comfort that make them vulnerable to manipulation. Only by cultivating self-reliance, embracing critical thinking, and confronting reality with courage can one avoid falling into the trap and maintain their sovereignty. The ability to observe oneself and one's emotional reactions with detached clarity is the ultimate defense against those who seek to exploit our vulnerabilities. The chess player anticipates his opponent's moves several turns in advance, not by guessing, but by understanding the fundamental principles of the game and recognizing the patterns that emerge from those principles. Similarly, the master manipulator understands the underlying psychology of human behavior, recognizing the predictable patterns of weakness and exploiting them to achieve his desired outcome. The individual who can recognize these patterns in themselves and in others is therefore best equipped to navigate the treacherous terrain of human interaction and avoid becoming a victim of manipulation. The general understands that a well-defended position is only as strong as its weakest point. He meticulously analyzes the terrain, identifying potential vulnerabilities and reinforcing them before the enemy can exploit them. Similarly, the individual who seeks to maintain their sovereignty must constantly assess their own weaknesses and vulnerabilities, taking steps to mitigate them and strengthen their defenses. This requires a ruthless self-honesty, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about oneself, and a commitment to continuous self-improvement. The architect designs structures that are both aesthetically pleasing and structurally sound, understanding the importance of both form and function. Similarly, the individual who seeks to cultivate true strength must develop both their intellectual and emotional capabilities, recognizing that true power comes from a harmonious balance between reason and emotion. The trap is therefore not a physical construct, but a psychological one. It is a state of mind, a way of thinking that makes one vulnerable to manipulation. Only by cultivating self-awareness, embracing critical thinking, and confronting reality with courage can one break free from the trap and maintain their sovereignty. The market is a theater of human desires. Here, every transaction, every negotiation, every advertisement is a carefully crafted performance designed to influence behavior and extract value. The weak are those who enter this arena unprepared, their desires and anxieties laid bare for all to see. They are easily swayed by persuasive language, emotional appeals, and carefully crafted illusions. They chase after fleeting trends, succumb to impulsive purchases, and ultimately find themselves trapped in a cycle of debt and dissatisfaction. The predator understands this perfectly. He preys on the weak, offering them false promises and enticing them with the allure of instant gratification. He uses sophisticated marketing techniques to manipulate their emotions, creating a sense of urgency and scarcity that compels them to act irrationally. He exploits their insecurities, promising them status and validation in exchange for their hard-earned money. His victims become trapped in a web of desire and dependency, their financial freedom sacrificed on the altar of consumerism. The trap springs when the individual loses sight of their own values and priorities, allowing themselves to be defined by external forces. They become obsessed with acquiring possessions, seeking validation through material wealth, and measuring their self-worth by the size of their bank account. They neglect their relationships, their health, and their personal growth, sacrificing everything on the pursuit of fleeting pleasures. In the end, they find themselves empty and unfulfilled, trapped in a gilded cage of their own making. The antidote to this trap is self-awareness, the ability to recognize the forces that are shaping our desires and influencing our behavior. It is the capacity to question our motivations, to challenge our assumptions, and to make conscious choices that align with our values and priorities. It is the freedom to reject the false promises of consumerism and to define our own path to happiness and fulfillment. The strong are those who enter the market with a clear understanding of their own needs and desires. They are not easily swayed by persuasive language or emotional appeals. They are critical thinkers, discerning the true value of goods and services and making informed decisions that align with their financial goals. They are disciplined and patient, resisting the temptation of instant gratification and investing in their future. They are masters of their own destiny, using the market to their advantage and creating a life of abundance and fulfillment. The architect of control understands that hearts under pressure are susceptible to manipulation. They know that individuals burdened by financial strain, relationship problems, or existential angst are more likely to seek solace in external validation. They exploit these vulnerabilities, offering solutions that appear to alleviate pain but ultimately tighten the chains of dependence. Consider the struggling artist, desperate for recognition and financial stability. The architect of control might offer them a lucrative commission, but at the cost of artistic freedom and personal integrity. Or observe the lonely executive, yearning for connection and companionship. The architect of control might introduce them to a network of influential individuals, but at the price of their privacy and autonomy. These seemingly benevolent gestures are carefully calculated to create a sense of obligation, subtly binding the individual to the architect's will. The chains are not always visible, but they are always present, restricting movement, limiting choices, and ultimately compromising the individual's sense of self. The most insidious form of control is that which operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness. The architect of control is a master of psychological manipulation, skilled at shaping perceptions, influencing emotions, and controlling behavior without the victim even realizing they are being manipulated. They understand the power of suggestion, the art of persuasion, and the science of behavioral conditioning. They use these tools to create a reality that serves their own interests, carefully curating information, shaping narratives, and controlling the flow of communication. They exploit our innate biases, our emotional vulnerabilities, and our cognitive limitations, subtly guiding us towards decisions and actions that benefit them. The truth becomes a lie, molded and shaped to fit their agenda. The lines between reality and illusion blur, leaving the individual disoriented, confused, and ultimately powerless. Silence, too, speaks volumes. The architect of control understands the power of withholding information, of creating ambiguity, and of fostering uncertainty. They use silence as a weapon, sowing seeds of doubt, undermining confidence, and creating an environment of fear and suspicion. They understand that in the absence of information, people will fill the void with their own assumptions, often projecting their deepest fears and insecurities onto the situation. This creates an opportunity for the architect of control to shape those assumptions, to manipulate perceptions, and to guide behavior through subtle cues and indirect suggestions. The silenced victim becomes isolated, alienated, and increasingly dependent on the architect of control for guidance and reassurance. The end, they claim, justifies the means. This is the mantra of the ruthless pragmatist, the individual who is willing to sacrifice everything, including their own moral compass, in the pursuit of power and success. The architect of control believes that the rules do not apply to them, that they are above the law, that they are entitled to use any means necessary to achieve their goals. They justify their actions by claiming that they are acting in the greater good, that they are protecting the innocent, or that they are serving a higher purpose. But in reality, their motives are always self-serving, driven by a desire for power, control, and domination. They are willing to lie, cheat, steal, and even kill to achieve their objectives, rationalizing their behavior with twisted logic and self-deception. The only defense against such insidious manipulation is ruthless self-honesty and the unwavering pursuit of truth. You must cultivate a deep understanding of your own vulnerabilities, your own biases, and your own weaknesses. You must learn to recognize the subtle signs of manipulation, the persuasive language, the emotional appeals, and the carefully crafted narratives. You must question everything, challenge assumptions, and demand evidence. You must be willing to stand alone, to reject the comfort of conformity, and to embrace the discomfort of dissent. You must cultivate a strong moral compass, grounded in principles of integrity, honesty, and compassion.